and welcome to this very special episode. As you can see, we are here in the cockpit of SpiceJet, and not just any SpiceJet aircraft, the brand new 737 MAX. And with me, we have Ajay Singh. Mr. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. And this is a very special, day for you because you've got these 205 aircrafts. Tell us a little bit about it, about the purchase, and also at a time when fuel prices are so high, how will it help in terms of reducing fuel costs, etc.?
Well, as you know, we've ordered 205 aircraft. This is the 737 MAX aircraft. It's the new technology from Boeing. This has several great features, both for the airlines as well as for consumers. As you said, the fuel burn for this aircraft is a lot less. We'll burn 14% less fuel, which is incredibly important at this crazy time when oil prices have gone up and are so high now. In addition to that, this is truly a green plane. So this has a far smaller noise footprint, about 40% smaller noise footprint. The NOx emissions are significantly lower, about 30-40% lower than the old plane. So I think from an airline's perspective, it's a lower cost plane, both in terms of fuel burn as well as in terms of engineering cost, which is about 25-30% lower for this aircraft. And therefore we believe that it benefits SpiceJet, but it also benefits consumers because they're flying in a quieter plane.
But lower cost is something that you guys have been doing for a while, right? Even in the quarter gone by, you were the only airline that actually managed to hold on to your yields. What are the cost reduction plans that the company has going forward?
Well, at this time, I think the most important plan for us is that we induct more and more of these aircraft so that the cost of fuel comes down. We also want to fly to destinations that have lower VAT, states, airports that have lower VAT on aviation turbine fuel. We need to try and figure ways of increasing revenue. I think that's critical for the aviation sector today, that some of the costs, the additional costs that we've incurred as a consequence of the rupee depreciating and the oil price going up is passed on to consumers. And we believe that that should happen soon as the festive season kicks in. Airlines will try and take up fares. Today the fares are absurdly low. You know, sometimes it costs more to travel by taxi to the airport than it does to fly from one airport to the other.
It does.
At an average of 3,700 rupees, Delhi, Mumbai.
But why is the industry not coming together and raising prices, together? Because at a time when crude prices are so high, demand is so strong, why can't this effort be made together to sort of make the pricing system a bit more rational?
I think what tends to happen is that there are some players who are getting a lot of capacity in the market, and because they need to fill those planes, they try and sell cheap, and that keeps the fares depressed. I think there is a general sentiment in the industry that fares need to go up. They really do need to go up, and I believe that it should happen really soon.
So you're saying fares will go up very soon?
Fares will go up, and I think they will become more rational than they are today.
Is it true that in the last 15 days, we do 15-day data of the fares moving for 500 domestic routes. We've noticed that cumulatively a lot of the companies have increased prices by an average of around 1,500 rupees. Is that correct, and is that something that will sort of translate into better earnings in the December quarter?
I think that all airlines are looking for opportunities to pass on some of the additional cost. And I'm not sure about the 1,500 rupee number, but remember that we are coming off a weak period of flying, which is the September month is the weakest. There's also a Shraddh period which ended sort of on 8th of October. So you will see yields hardening and hopefully better earnings for the December quarter than you will see in the September quarter.
Okay, I'm going to come back to earnings in a bit, but I want to take up one point you mentioned, that you're going to fly to routes where there's a lower VAT. What do you see as the move from the government?
Well, I think that the government is quite sympathetic, and government, aviation has been one of the great success stories of this Modi government. And, India has been the fastest growing aviation market in the world for the last several years. The Udan scheme has made so many airports accessible where flights never flew before. SpiceJet itself is a leader in Udan, and we've gone to so many new airports. You would have heard about Pakyong, which we just started, and yesterday we started Ajmer, which is at Dargah Sharif, that airport. And so there are so many which are getting added to the network, Kanpur, Jalandhar, so many that we ourselves started. So it's a huge success story for the Modi government, and I would think that there would be concern if this success story, or if this sector was hugely impacted and the government did very little. It's important that all airlines around the world have the benefit of having aviation fuel at a much lower cost, because it is either they are not taxed on aviation fuel, or if they are taxed, then aviation fuel is part of their GST regimes, and therefore they get input credit. So the net effective tax on ATF is zero. So we need that to happen in our country. We are speaking to government on both the issues, which is that on excise duty on ATF used to be 8%. It was high, but it was 8%. And as oil prices came down, they increased it. So as oil prices have gone back up again and the rupee is depreciated as well, we've requested that this be brought down to 8% again. It's for government to see what is to be done. It's not only the central government, it's also the state government. Many state governments actually took up VAT the time oil prices came down. So, for example, this airport where we are today, the VAT used to be 20%. They took it up to 25%, and this is an airport where there's a lot of traffic, so it made a big difference.
Yes.
So we are looking to states as well. There are certain states which have started to reduce VAT on ATF. Telangana and Andhra have 1% VAT now. Uttar Pradesh has launched a new scheme where they've said that flights going to every new destination will have zero VAT. West Bengal has reduced VAT by 50% on additional ATF that you uplift from that state. So there are states which are looking at this, and of course flights will shift to states where the cost is lower.
So what are the issues? So there's talk of no import duty on the engineering parts, giving an infrastructure status to the aviation sector. Do you think any of that will help at all?
Of course it will help. Of course, the import duty on IGST, which has been imposed on engineering components. Now, what happens is that this used to be zero. Once the GST regime came, they imposed this IGST on engines. So, an engine typically goes through its life 2 or 3 times. It goes for a shop visit. Every time it comes back, if you tax it, then it becomes extremely expensive. And we have raised this with government and said, look, there is no repair facility within our country. We need to send it out. No country in the world taxes, aviation services like this. So we hope that some of these, issues will be looked at and changes made.
So until some of these issues get resolved, with the way crude prices are headed, with the way the rupee has moved, you think that this industry is headed for much more in terms of losses? And for SpiceJet as well, I mean, you've been relatively doing better than the others, but do you see more losses in the quarters to come?
Just as we look to government for assistance, both central and state government, we have to do our own part. And that is that we need to reduce cost. So one thing that we are doing to reduce cost is to get more of these new planes in. Because these planes burn 14% less fuel, as I said to you. Engineering cost is about 30% less. So because of that, the overall cost comes down more than 10%. So that is something that airlines have to do. They have to get new technology. They have to try and reduce their own cost base. And more importantly, they need to increase their fares. There's no, when there is a market with such terrific demand, you can keep putting in planes and keep filling them, right? Market has been growing 20% year on year, and it is the fastest growing market in the world. In such a market, if an average fare between Delhi and Mumbai is 3,700, 3,800 rupees, I don't think demand will really be impacted if you take it to 42 or 4,300 rupees.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this is something for the airlines to be responsible and do for themselves. And I think importantly for the larger carriers to take the lead.
Okay, yeah. So you're saying that in the near future there will be a cumulative effort by the companies to sort of increase fares. Are we talking about the end of this aggressive pricing regime?
I think the aggressive pricing is part and parcel of the growth of aviation, and there will always be tickets sold, to new destinations. When you try and get in new flyers into the mix, there will always be aggressive pricing, but we are hoping that the pricing can be much more rational than it is today, and I fully expect that in October you will see a rise in fares.
Okay, that's good to hear. In the past you've also said that you see a lot of SpiceJet's revenues increasingly come from the ancillary business, from the cargo business. What are your plans there? How much would the investments be, and eventually what percentage of revenues would come from there?
Well, the way we look at it, ancillary revenue is something that's key to low-cost airlines, and cargo is an incredibly important part of that. So two pieces that we are especially looking at. One is the Spice, this plane itself, the MAX aircraft, has more seats on premium economy. So hopefully that helps us improve. This is a really nice product now. Much more legroom, cushions,
Wi-Fi,
and Wi-Fi, and very soon onboard broadband internet service, because it's fully equipped for that. We're just awaiting a government clearance. So we will work hard on the ancillary pieces. Cargo is really important. As you know, we launched a freighter service recently, and we will be adding to that. And we expect fully that this whole cargo and logistics business will be a reasonably high margin business for us.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break. But before we do that, since we are sitting in the cockpit, I have to ask you, this is the first time I'm sitting in the cockpit. Have you flown a plane before?
I have not flown a plane. I have not dared to. I have tried to fly it, however, in a simulator. I wasn't the best at it. I need to take more lessons, clearly. And a simulator is like really realistic. So if you actually crash a plane when you're flying there, it behaves exactly like a plane would behave. So the sirens go off, the smoke starts to come out, and
so
it's
the blood pressure goes up.
Oh yeah, it's a terrifically real experience. My daughter flies. She's learning how to fly, and I hope one day I will get time to.
So
to
since
learn
you
as
have
well.
been in a simulator, I'm sure you know how this functions. Flying for dummies. If you had to tell us a couple of buttons here and there, what stands for what? And if I had to fly a plane right now, what's the first thing I have to do?
Well, as you can see, this is a glass cockpit that they have now. It gives you a whole host of data. It tells you how much fuel there is in each engine. What is the speed you're flying, what is the direction you're flying. You see, if you look at this says heading, so you just change it to change the direction of the plane.
Okay.
This is an altitude meter. So what you do is that you just twirl this button, and pretty much you can decide which altitude you need to get to. So if you just twirled it back and said 1,000, so the plane will start to descend by itself to 1,000.
Looks pretty simple.
It's actually, the plane pretty much flies itself. These are really automated pieces of equipment now, and they do a fabulous job flying themselves. In fact, they can pretty much land themselves as well.
Are you trying to say that you don't need pilots anymore?
We are actually moving towards a regime where, in the US they are experimenting now with single pilot aircraft instead of two. And over time, the way Uber and all are experimenting with pilotless, driverless cars. People are actually seriously speaking, and we were at the Boeing factory, and they were actually speaking about pilotless aircraft in the future.
I don't want to be the first one.
So we don't want to be I personally, I would be very scared to fly in an aircraft of this sort, but that's probably just my, old world thinking, and the new generation probably won't care to who flies them. But these are very automated aircraft, really high tech.
Okay, so before we end, what about all this? What are all these 100 buttons here?
You
don't know.
There are just too many of them for me to tell you what's happening here.
Okay guys, that was Flying 101 for Dummies by Ajay Singh. But don't go anywhere, we'll take a short break and we'll come back with lots more on the aviation sector. Stay with us.